Storytelling is hard. And it's especially hard because there's no one right way to do it. If there was, anybody could do it. It would be like heating up canned soup. You just follow the heating instructions on the back of the can, and as long as you don't burn down your house, congratulations, you have soup. Writing is more like making your own soup from scratch. You get to experiment and try out all kinds of ingredients and combinations of your own, and when they all come together just right, yeah, that's a soup that's all yours. No one can get it from a can. It's entirely possible that I got in the habit of eating way too much soup during all those months in lockdown. Yeah. In addition to beating food similes to death, one method writers have devised to draw their readers into a book and hook them fast is by coming up with a killer opening line. Now, plenty of wonderful stories don't begin this way. There's no rules saying you have to open your story with a sucker punch of a sentence that knocks your readers out of their figurative socks, but if you can pull it off, it's a great way to get them to say, "You had my interest, now you have my attention." A killer opening line can set an entire mood or convey reams of information about your characters and their world in just a few short words. The opening line is an art form all its own. If it's good enough, your readers will remember it, even if they forget everything else about your book, which I admit is kind of a mixed blessing. So let's take a look at 12 of my favorite opening lines from SFF novels. Several of these are super famous and they get quoted all the time, but I've omitted some other obvious famous openers in favor of a few that I appreciate personally. Clearly this list doesn't represent every single book that's out there, but I think it gives good variety. This opener makes one thing inescapably clear. Our narrator is probably not going to have a happy ending. The character is reaching out to us. The story is their account of how everything fell apart for them. And yet there is possibly something that we, the reader, can learn from all of it. It's blunt and propels you into the narrative with the certain promise of danger. Ray Bradbury's 1953 dystopian classic helped set the template for generations of dystopian fiction to come. And this opening line establishes what would become a reliable trope, a first-person protagonist who works on behalf of the oppressive system and begins to have a personal awakening and change of heart as the story goes on. The joy of destruction is a cornerstone of fascist thinking, and it is chillingly encapsulated in this legendary opening line. The other legendary dystopian classic that everyone knows about, but possibly not nearly enough of you have read, has this sublime opening line, which establishes in a darkly satirical way that we're entering a world defined by the normalization of lies, no matter how trivial. We're not sure what we can or cannot trust as we ease ourselves nervously into the story. Now, when it comes to the OG Cyberpunk himself, William Gibson, everybody, and I do mean everybody, quotes the opening line from Neuromancer. The sky above the port was the color of television tuned to a dead channel. For me, in the same way that I consider Gibson's second novel, Count Zero, to be a better book overall, I also think it has an infinitely more badass opening line. Right away, the focus is on suspense, action, and violence. We have no idea what a slamhound is, but we can pretty easily guess it is something not to be fucked with. This line establishes that we are in a dangerous techno-future in a story that covers the globe, and it isn't going to give us too many chances to catch our breath. Neil Stephenson may not be able to end a book to save his life, but boy, does he sure know how to hook you into one. His 2015 epic Seven Eves, which I reviewed here when it came out, is a sprawling, deeply flawed, but often intense apocalyptic saga that hits the ground running and keeps going. Maybe not for all of its 880 pages, but at least 2/3 of them. And it starts with a literal bang. Talk about hitting the ground running. In his breakout bestseller, The Martian, which single-handedly made hard science fiction commercially viable again, software engineer Andy Weir opens his book with a single sentence that encapsulates both Mark Watney's situation and the snarky personality that helps him endure an 18-month unintentional stay on the Red Planet. A killer opening line doesn't always have to be short and pithy. like a movie tagline, it can be a proper exercise in literary prose that triggers conflicting emotions in the reader, an immediate sense of unease and strangeness that lets us know we're very much not in any kind of normal world, and whatever has gone wrong in the characters' lives has a history. Such is the case in J.G. Ballard's legendary, scathing social satire High Rise, in which a single apartment tower block becomes a microcosm of the class resentments of an entire nation. This line is so famous that the 2015 movie adaptation starring Tom Hiddleston found a way to work it into the opening scene. So, be aware of that. Okay, so, everyone has mixed opinions of the Chronicles of Narnia saga. Some sweeping portal fantasy adventure hits some very bumpy roads when it offers up heavy-handed Christian symbolism as well as some bluntly racist depictions of the Calormenes, who are meant to represent Muslims. But the better books in the series keep the adventure on the front burner, and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader opens with a classic line that brilliantly sets a tone of humor that carries you through the story. Stephen King's monumental 7-volume Dark Tower saga, which establishes a vast horror fantasy universe that encapsulates a huge number of his other novels, including The Stand, may be a mixed bag overall, but Book 1, The Gunslinger, has a justifiably famous killer opening line that all on its own validates the greatness of King as a natural writer. It's not only the best single sentence of his career, but I defy you to find a stronger opening line in all of contemporary fiction. It's not just a great story hook, it's practically a full story in its own right. We immediately understand that we're in a situation of classic conflict between good and evil archetypes, but the sentence has a quality of tension and urgency that makes us eager to follow along on the chase, not in spite of the familiar tropes on display, but because of them. Now, some fantasy novels want to establish a dreamlike, haunting atmosphere, and for an example of that, you don't need to look any further than Erin Morgenstern's bestseller, The Night Circus. Once again, we have conflicting emotions created in the reader in a mere 5 words. Circuses are supposed to be joyous entertainments for the whole family, but the use of the word warning here lets us know there is something deeply sinister about this one, and it ain't just the clowns. Cameron Hurley's bizarre 2017 space opera The Stars Are Legion is the very definition of a mixed bag. It's absolutely not a book for everyone. I enjoyed it, though not so much for its plot, which to be honest is a hot mess, as for the sheer creative audacity of its world building and its seemingly endless parade of body horror. The opening line lets us know we're in a future in which life is both abundant and disturbingly cheap. Finally, keeping with space opera, Arkady Martine's masterful Hugo-winning adventure A Memory Called Empire opens with this beautiful opening line that has a lyrical, poetic quality, conveying a key aspect of the story's world-building, specifically the importance of poetry and art to the cultural identity of the spacefaring empire of Tixkalan. The first thing about the empire communicated to us by this line is a vast sense of scale and permanence. But as the story unfolds, we're going to learn that this permanence is a fragile thing indeed. And there you have it. That's all I've got for this episode of SFF 180 on the Road, coming to you today from just below Bunny Flat, near the base of Mount Shasta in Northern California. As you can see, absolutely stunning countryside. Anyway, what are some of your favorite killer opening lines from SFF novels? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed watching, please hit the like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe if you have not done so. That's how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's Army get little perks like getting early access to some of my videos. I want to thank those awesome people for their wonderful support. It is very much appreciated. I want to thank all the rest of you guys for being the best viewers in all of BookTube, and until I see you next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay away from big cliffs, and happy reading.